A blind man from White Plains realized his dream. 68-year-old Brian Wallach successfully swam the width of the Hudson River from Pier Point to Irvington in just under 2 hours. Wallach was greeted in Matheson Park by about 50 onlookers who congratulated him on his tremendous feat. Irvington Mayor Dennis Flood presented the swimmer with a proclamation from the village, and Wallach's guide for the swim, DEC Commissioner John Cahill, read a certificate from Governor George Pataki declaring Wallach the first blind man to ever swim across the Hudson.
There we go. Good morning, Marie. And congratulations. I lost my eyesight when I was 25 years old, right around the time of my birthday, which is in June.
He really doesn't talk about that very much. It's not his favorite subject. You know, people will ask how he lost it. They're curious, and that's fine.
It was sudden and dramatic and caused by detached retinas, which in those days was pretty difficult to restore. The technology had not moved to where it is today. Ophthalmology was using methods that they had used around the Civil War in the 1860s. They did what they could do, but your chances of recovery in those days was between 5 and 10%. Today, it's between 90 and 95% recovery. Very fortunately, I was in the insurance business and had an assistant who would come to the hospital, took dictation, and told me all the things that were happening, and I would sign things, and so I just fit right back in. That's all. That's always been my attitude. Move on. As to frustration, well, yeah, of course I was. There were things I'd like to have done and couldn't do, and mobility was a big issue, and didn't like to be dependent on anybody.
I met Brian for the first time very casually on the street through mutual friends. This was a very attractive man, and he kind of piqued my curiosity because I'd read about him in the newspaper. He had been, I think, only the second person in White Plains to have gotten a seeing eye dog. And it was big news, big thing back in 1957 7. As fate would have it, I tell you, we were destined to meet one way or the other. I met him again on a street corner. This time I was alone, and I approached him, and I said who I was and how we have met once before. At that point, he asked how old I was. So now he had an idea who this chick was who was accosting him on the street. Next thing I know, I got a telephone call from him, and he wants to have lunch with me the next day. Now, this was in May of 1959.
3 weeks later, we were engaged. 3 weeks. And 3 months after that, we were married. It's a little unusual. And that was some 49 years ago. Can you imagine that? I can't imagine that. But it goes by.
When we were first married, I often wondered if it were a possibility of us getting his eyesight back. But I was young and a romantic, and I learned later on that there really wasn't much that could be done because the one eye was completely shot, and when one is shot, often the other one goes along with it.
I sure would love to get it back. Who wouldn't? You'd be ridiculous not to, get it back. It's handy.
In today's world, there's nothing that could be done. If miraculously you could do eye transplants, and that's a pretty wild thought, because the eye is really complicated. But if you could, what would it be like to come back and see people, because people don't look the way you expect them to. Gosh, what if he didn't like the way I looked?
I do have some systems that get you around, and that's I have for 51 years now. I've had a seeing eye dog. I've had 6 of them, and they do get you around, and they do. They do a great job, night and day, 7 days a week, and they also are a great icebreaker. You meet a lot of interesting people. People always ask permission, can I pet your dog? And I said, if you tell me your name, I'll let you do it. We work it out, no question about it. Oh, he's having a dream.
We've had such wonderful dogs, and the first one, of course, came along before I did. So he was very attached to Brian, and he actually used to sleep on the bed. And things changed, and we tried to discourage that after we got married, but I think the dog may have been a little bit jealous of where the attention was now going a little bit. But he was a wonderful dog and lived to be 14 and a half. People may think that they're just working dogs and like machines. Well, they do work, that's for sure, but when they stop working, they're just dogs. And when a dog like that comes home, the harness comes off, and he runs around the house and plays with whatever toy he happens to like. I get very depressed when these animals die. I'm worse than Brian. I get very attached to them, and the dogs get very attached to me too. I'm sort of their mother and playmate. When the end comes, he takes it better than I do. Of course he gets very attached, but they've been such a part of our household.